Ken Shepard. Here. Scott Likens. Here. Fred Portfolio. Absent. Bill Maloney. Here. Will Pinn. Here. Dave Oxley. Yes. And Jim Bellata. Here. The quorum is present. Second. Sorry. Thank you.
Attorney Williams, need to swear. Will we be swearing people in this evening?
We're going to discuss that later on, and we'll look at it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairman Oxley and members of the Commission. Before you this evening, case number 2017-006, applicant John Antonitis on behalf of the Lupine Montessori School is seeking a special use permit for the purpose of establishing a private school to be located at 936 North State Street in the existing North State Street Center. The applicant intends to lease a 2,500 square foot tenant space positioned on the north end of the building. The tenant spaces on either side are currently vacant. The applicant is seeking approval of special use for a not-for-profit private Montessori school for children ages 3 to 6. The subject property is Zone C2. A private school is classified as a special use within the C2 zoning district. If approved, the applicant would begin providing educational services to families starting in September. Anticipated enrollment would be approximately 15 to 20 children. Per the applicant, there will be 2 employees. Hours and days of operation would be Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The applicant may offer after-school care, which would extend the hours of operation to 6 p.m. A special use permit shall be granted only if evidence is presented to establish the following. The proposed use at the particular location requested is necessary or desirable to provide a service or facility which is in the interest of the public and will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood or community. Staff finds the proposed private Montessori school will provide a desirable service that will contribute to the general welfare by providing primary education to children at the preschool and kindergarten level. The proposed use will not have a substantial adverse effect upon the adjacent neighborhood, traffic conditions, utility facilities, and other matters affecting safety and general welfare. Staff finds the proposed private school should not have any adverse effect upon the adjacent property, traffic conditions, or character of the neighborhood, as it would be located within an existing commercial center. And third, the proposed use will be designed, arranged, and operated so as to permit the development and use of the neighboring property in accordance with the applicable district regulations. Staff finds the proposed private school would be located within an existing commercial center and should have no impact on future use of neighboring properties. Should the Plan and Zoning Commission find the special use permit for a private school acceptable, the following motion is recommended. A motion to approve a special use permit for a private school to be located at 936 North State Street, subject to the following condition. Because the drive aisle in front of the building is designated a fire lane by the respective fire district, drop-off pickup of students in front of the building is not allowed. This concludes staff analysis. The applicant is present this evening to answer your questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Jason Antonitis. I am the board chair. Excuse me. 14250 Hillcrest Road, Lamont, 60439. So my name is Jason Antonitis. I'm the board chair of Lupine Montessori School. We're an Illinois not-for-profit organization. And as Kimberly had said, we are seeking a special use permit for 936 North State Street to establish a private school. I'd like to introduce Tina Davidson, our head of school.
Hello, my name is Tina Davidson. I reside in Lockport. My husband and I have been here for 20 years. I've been with Montessori for 15 years, and so we thought this would be a perfect community to start the school.
Do you have any questions for us? Yes. Originally, we had planned to have cars pull up into right in front of the unit and drop children off, with the recommendation of Dave Bricker. Parents will park their cars in the parking lot and either bring their children to the unit, or teachers will come out to the car to retrieve the children.
So something in place where the kids won't be by themselves walking across the
Correct.
lawn.
No
Right.
children will ever be walking alone. They'll either be chaperoned by a parent or a teacher.
Thank you.
Is there much that has to be done inside the building before you guys would occupy it?
No, in year one, we don't plan to do any improvements. That's why this space was desirable for us, in that it is basically a vanilla box, open space, that's exactly what we're seeking, is just an open footprint. So no improvements will be done in year one.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I move that we approve with the staff's recommendation, motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ken Shepard,
Yes.
Scott Likens,
Yes.
Fred Portillo. Yes. Bill Maloney,
Yes.
Will Pinn,
Yes.
Dave Oxley,
Yes,
and Jim Belota.
Yes.
thank you very much. This will go to city council,
It will be going on July 19th, next week.
this will go to city council July 19th. You'll confer with staff.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you much. Yeah. Next, we have the final development plan for the mini mart at 1626 South State Street.
Thank you. Case number 2016-005 takes place at 1626 South State Street. The applicant, William Warman of WW Architects and Consulting LLC, on behalf of Ahmed Zadan, has submitted final development plans for a 1,740 square foot mini mart gas station service building. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing approximate 400 square foot building and reconstruct a new 1,740 square foot building. The purpose of the intended expansion is to increase sales floor area to add new products to the store. The property is zoned C2, Community Commercial. A gas station limited service, also referred to as Automobile Mini Market or Automobile Mini Mart, is a permitted use within the C2 zoning district. The existing Marathon gas station was originally developed on 2 non-conforming lots. The lots were consolidated into a single property for this request, which resulted in a property that was brought closer into conformance with the zoning ordinance, however still deemed non-conforming. The rear portion of the yard consists of an existing slope with a retaining wall. The retaining wall will be reconstructed to allow the proposed building. The existing parking lot, gas pumps, shed, and gas pump canopy will remain intact on the property. Due to the configuration of these structures and the existing driveways, non-conforming conditions such as a 20 to 22-foot width drive aisle and a 1-foot parking setback currently exist on the property. Should the commission determine that the property should be brought into compliance holistically, this can be addressed through administrative variance. During the construction period, the applicant has expressed that he will be making improvements to the overall condition of the property with general repairs and maintenance. Some of these improvements include repair of the gas pump canopy, the existing chain link fence, resurfacing and restriping of the existing parking lot, removal of yellow bollards that no longer serve to protect old tanks, and removal of broken concrete curbs. These repairs and replacements will be a condition of approval. The final site plan. The site plan illustrates that the approximate 400 square foot building will be demolished and replaced with a 1,740 square foot building. The expansion will require the removal of an existing retaining wall with additional cut into an additional slope located on the east side of the property. The proposed development is in compliance with bulk requirements of the ordinance, such as setbacks, lot coverage, and building height. The provided parking exceeds required parking spaces. Per the staff report, the dimensions of the spaces were 8 foot by 18 feet. The applicant has agreed to modify the dimensions to be 9 feet by 18 feet in accordance with the ordinance. No new access is proposed. Currently, the dumpster is not within an enclosure. A new dumpster enclosure will be constructed using a wood fence. The elevation plan calls for a mixture of materials to include glass, aluminum, cast stone, and cement fiber panels for the proposed building. A gutter with a downspout located out of view of the public at the rear of the building is shown on the east elevation. The elevation plan indicates that rooftop mechanical equipment will be screened as required. The applicant will be removing overgrown frontage landscaping along State Street and replacing with 14 new compact viburnum. Signage is not proposed at this time. A separate sign permit will need to be submitted for review and approval. Should the commission find the final development plans acceptable, the following motion is recommended. A motion to approve final development plans for a new 1,740 square foot gas station mini-mart building, subject to the following conditions. The existing parking lot shall be resurfaced, seal-coated, and striped, and maintained in accordance with city code. The parking spaces located on the north side of the property shall have permanently affixed curb stops. The overall condition of the property shall be in good condition and shall be improved with the following maintenance. The existing gas pump canopy shall have the rust removed, be repaired, and overall structure shall be repainted. The old concrete remains in blocks along the perimeter of the parking lot shall be removed. The chain link fence that is damaged shall be repaired or replaced. If replaced, a building permit must be obtained prior to installation. Prior to construction, required engineering review and inspection fees need to be submitted. A building permit for the existing shed shall be obtained to establish a record of accessory building. And 6, a demolition permit shall be obtained from the building department prior to demolition of the existing service building. This concludes staff analysis. The applicant is present this evening to answer questions.
Chair, if I may, before the applicant comes up, if I could just correct the record that this is the case number 2017-005, not 006.
Would the applicant like to come forward? State your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is William Warman, 9853 Tamiami Trail North, Naples, Florida.
My name is Ahmed Salih, and I live at 718 Michigan Street in Elmhurst.
Ahmed Mukhtar, 31 Sorrento Drive, Bellas Heights.
Do we have any questions for the applicant, or would you like?
Just our intent is to clean up the site, make it more customer-friendly, make it more compatible with other competition. Right now, it's a very difficult store for people to even come in and out of, and the goal is make it cleaner, brighter, more accessible, clean up the site, clean up the landscaping, fix the fences. I mean, it's been overgrown, so that the intent is to get it cleaned up so it's more presentable to the village and to the customers who use the facility.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Brent. Not doing a roll call.
Okay, I got a few. Parking stalls, they mentioned that the width should be 9 feet, but more so than that, on the south side of the site, parallel parking, you need 22 feet, 18 is not enough. So hopefully you can lengthen stalls 1, 2, and 3 at the south end of the site. Looks like you got a little bit of room.
Yes, we can.
Okay. For the handicap stall, there's a, I don't know if that's a pump or what it is, the longer rectangle, it's at the east end of the canopy. You don't have enough backup room, they're gonna hit it. You need 24 feet to jockey out of there, and I think there's only like 20 feet available. I think the minimum stall width is 24 feet.
Okay.
To me, we can relax that, that requirement except for when there's a structure in the way. So if that's a pump or something.
Oh, no, that rectangle's a car.
Oh, it's a car?
Yeah.
I don't know, nothing's labeled.
Yeah, so,
Okay, well then, looks like you have enough room to the pump then.
yes.
And the setback for the wheel blocks, they gotta be 3 feet from the fence.
Okay.
1 foot's not enough, they're gonna run right into the fence, it's like it's not even there.
I think my dimension was the parking spot is 1 foot off because the wheels overhang. So the stop would be 3 foot off the property line.
Okay,
That's,
okay.
I just measured I dimensioned the parking spot itself because the car overhangs 2 feet.
You're gonna change those to 20-foot spaces also?
To 9 foot, 9 foot wide spaces.
Nine, yeah.
Yes.
What else? On the elevation plan at A3, there's no colors or anything. Usually we require color renderings for the elevation.
I had presented in my package called a rendering of the facade. Basically,
I don't see that sheet in our packet. Do you see this? No. Oh,
It's not, it wasn't included in the packet because the elevation was revised
oh,
Revised to what?
to the black and white version that you have in your packet that has the labels with the materials to include the packet with the materials to be used.
because you have written in the legend for items 5 and 6, which are the predominant panels, color A and color B, and I don't know what color A and color B are.
basically, it's like a cut stone tan.
I looked in here.
Right.
There's colors point out in here, but it doesn't say color A and color B. It's just got, I don't,
The bottom is to be a stone color, a cream color stone with a brownish brick and then a cream color cornice.
Bottom, how tall up?
I believe with,
say 10 feet then?
18 inches.
That's,
Was,
can I see that drawing?
was there a review by staff of the elevations for conformance with our codes?
Yes,
Okay, that was okay?
yes, it meant the percentage and the number of materials to be used.
So
Okay,
what was revised on this drawing is what I want to know. What-
The main problem was that the materials were not called out. So there's numbers that are identified on the elevation, but it's unknown what those items were. So when asked for revisions, the copy that was submitted had very similar, but also called out the actual, had a legend added or a key added. And the packet that you have with the materials, I believe those are numbered to match that key.
So we're supposed to play connect the dot?
well, they're not numbered. You got
Not
number 7
numbered.
and number 24, and there's
There's
not
not.
any numbers like that in the elevation view.
On sheet A3, on the right-hand side, there's a legend with numbers, 1 through 11, and those numbers match on that sample piece that you have there. I have labeled 4 and 5 and 7 and 8.
Is that a 24 or a 2? What's it, number 2?
This is confusing.
Well, it was kind of confusing to me. And
Number 7 on page 5. But send that back over.
well, if it met the requirements. And then the other thing was the lighting. In the staff report, it said, no new outdoor lighting is proposed. The new building will not have lighting fixtures. The existing lighting is built in the gas pump canopy. The fixtures are downward lit. Was there a photometric plan that they have to submit for lighting for safety to make sure that the existing lights are adequate for the new site? Is it being expanded?
A photometric plan was not required because no new lighting is proposed.
But for safety, there's gonna be dark spots now because you're expanding the lot, and that's not safe for customers at night, I don't think.
We're not expanding a lot. The building's moving backward into the hill, so the front of the building will stay exactly where it is now.
Well,
It goes back into the hill. So the exact parking lot and everything is exactly how it is today.
how is the building going to be lit? There's
Just
no
from the lights
exterior
inside the store with the glass that's along the front, and the canopy's under the canopy, and there's whatever. We were not proposing any new outdoor lighting, not to create any extra lighting.
So the current lighting plan meets code. When they originally applied for the permit for the structure is what I'm getting at. So the new lighting ordinance, is it better than when it was when they first built it to make sure it's just up to code? That's all I'm asking. You know what I'm saying?
You can add a condition to request a photometric plan be submitted.
We're happy to do that. We didn't do it because we weren't adding lighting, and that was what I was.
Safety. We're all about safety. That's all I had, thank you.
Could I see that plan again? I feel we're at a disadvantage not having a copy of that plan. Any other questions, comments? Scott?
Are these the drawings that will be submitted for a building permit?
No, they will have to submit detailed drawings.
Okay,
Yes.
there'll be structural foundation
Oh,
drawings?
yes, correct, yes.
Such?
We've included the structural drawings for the retaining wall in our package. The building drawings will be a complete set of mechanical, electric, plumbing, structural, architectural drawings.
Mr. Warman, you used to practice in Chicago?
I still
or-
do.
Okay.
I'm in Chicago 4 to 5 days a week.
You were part of the WOW firm?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I was with my father.
So once the final plans are put together with the building permit, engineering and the building will do a final review of all this, is that correct then?
Well, there really was no, the engineering was reviewed by Steve Gidley, our development engineering consultant, and he approved the plans that had been submitted. The building plans, yes, they will be reviewed in detail by our building official when they come through for building permit.
So like some of the concerns that Mr. Feely brought up, that'll be reviewed at the time?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Well, this facility into town near my house, it's around the corner from my house. I welcome to see the improvements over there. I know that was the Clark station way back when, but when Clark was gas and go and everybody else was full service. But I like what I see here. It's going to be an increase in employment opportunities for residents, because it'll take more people to staff it. Going to be an increase in retail sales tax and an increase in property tax, which is important because that's in the Taft School District, which needs it. So I don't have any problem with it at all.
Thank you.
I'll leave the engineering calculations, defer to the engineer over there.
Now, one thing that I'm looking at is your distance from the front of your store to your canopy and your gas pump. You put a car out there, how far, what is your distance from that?
The same as it is today. We're not moving, we're using that same front line of the building there. And the canopy's up much taller, so a car goes underneath it, yeah.
But we have a couple gas stations in town that are very tight fits, and that's why our concern is here. We have the chance to change this, and we may seek that opportunity.
Is it between
He's talking about.
It's approximately 15 to 16 feet at that corner to the front.
And, you know, with your parking stalls from, on the east backing up, with a car at that, you know, in the box here that's not labeled, that's a car, you're gonna have some accidents there.
Well, we can make those angle parking spots instead of 90 degree, which will make it more easy to
That would
back
help
out.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
That would help.
That would help out very immensely, yeah. Okay. Now, one other concern is that the building having the rooftop access from the back of the property, are you gonna address that somehow with a safety fence or something of that nature? And the retaining wall? Because we've got, what, a 7-foot drop on the retaining wall to the ground?
We're putting a new retaining wall in the back there.
Are you gonna address the top of that so there's a fence so, the
No one can
neighbors
fall off.
don't jump over it and get hurt, stuff of that nature?
Yeah, we can, as we have on the two sides of the property, we'll add a fence on around the perimeter of the retaining wall.
Okay. In the building as well? There's actually, I mean,
There's a
I'm
parapet on.
envisioning you're pretty close to ground elevation at the top of the building in the back.
I'll look into, I don't think we are, but I will look into that. I'll do a section through to see the height differential. I mean, the only people who go up to the building will be a roof hatch inside the store for maintenance people to get onto the roof.
Right, but someone from the could walk up from the east side of the property and walk onto that roof or jump onto that roof. That's our concern is, are you gonna put a safety fence there to stop them from doing this?
It's 10 foot higher than the wall to get up to the roof. So they can't just jump up onto that roof. And there's a 5-foot space between the building and the wall, sort of like a moat around the building. So I don't think, and if we put a fence on the retaining wall, there's no way then to jump up onto the roof.
Okay, as long as you're gonna put the fence on there. I
Yeah.
mean,
And we can make that a
We didn't see
condition.
this drawing till just now, and I was trying to figure out what this was.
It was just the material samples of,
It didn't fit anywhere in your packet, and it's like, where's this going? That's what's created some confusion here.
sorry about that.
If I may, perhaps what we can do is put a condition in the approvals that stipulates that once the building is constructed, that the applicant would agree, if necessary, some sort of barrier or protective measure would be installed if it was so deemed necessary.
That's fine. Any other questions, comments?
Is there a minimum amount of masonry face brick that you have to have on the building, since there's a lot of windows? It doesn't look like there's very much of it, because there's only, I think, 12 inches at the bottom. Looks just like a little bit.
Could you increase the stone up to the bottom of these window heights?
Isn't the red
The red's a
brick?
little-
As red as brick look material.
Faux brick?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the faux brick by Nietzsche?
Correct.
Oh, the yellow. That red is.
Yellow's only 16 inches at the bottom, correct?
Correct, and that's
Dave, that yellow is a
like a stone.
stone, and the red is a faux brick.
Brick.
By Nietzsche, it's cementitious fiber. So it'll look like brick all the way up to the top of that window.
No, but my question, do we want it to look like stone or brick? Is the question. Doesn't
I
matter.
don't think it matters.
Everybody's happy with it? Let's go.
But the minimums are met, right?
Minimums are met. Okay.
And it'd just be brown anodized window frames, keeping in the color scheme of,
What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve as per staff comments?
Second?
Motion by Perfino, second by Maloney. Roll call vote.
Ken Shepherd,
Yes.
Scott Likens,
Yes.
Brent Portillo.
Yes.
Bill Maloney,
Yes.
Will Pin,
yes.
Dave Oxley,
Yes.
and Jim Beletta.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
We're done with those anyhow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, our next case is the final development plan for religious house of worship at 16059, 16105 West 151st Street.
Yes, thank you.
Do we need a motion to take this off the table? It's been
I don't know.
tabled 27 times.
Sonny, do we need to untable this, or no, just by
Been
talking about
tabled
it?
several times.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay.
We don't have to untable it. As the commission may recall, several of the items related to these requested actions, such as the annexation, the rezoning, and amendment to the special use permit requests, were considered by the commission on March 14th. However, with respect to the final development plans, because of some issues and concerns with respect to the location of the building encroaching into the transitional yard, the commission had tabled this item so that the applicant could take a look at relocating that building out of the transitional yard and be more respectful of what was going on the west side of the property. Since that time, the applicant has worked to revise the plans, which are being presented to you this evening. There were some various setbacks for a variety of reasons, but we are here this evening. And included too is a copy of the annexation agreement. For your reference, the commission had asked for that also at the March 14th meeting. And though you don't actually vote on or discuss the annexation agreement, it will provide you information that will help to explain some of the things that have been included in the staff report previously and this evening. Just to summarize, the applicant is looking to build a new temple, which would be a 7,200 square foot building. There would be 3,600 square feet on the main level, which would include the worship area, and 3,600 square feet at the lower level or basement level, which would be the community room and kitchen. A new parking lot is being constructed, and it will consist of 112 total standard parking spaces and 4 accessible. That's a correction I have to make in the report. A proposed detention area and a new septic system. The applicant is looking to construct this project. This whole report again, I had highlighted and bolded and italicized where some of the changes from the previous report, which is what this was, where the previous report and how the changes had happened. So as I previously mentioned, the building and parking area were encroaching into the transitional yard along the west property line. Because of the discussion, the temple is now set back approximately 60 feet from the west property line and 50 feet from the south property line, and this is calculated by staff. The parking lot is set back 25.3 feet as noted on the final site improvement plan. However, if the commission may recall, back in 2012, a 25-foot setback variance was approved for the parking lot and circulation aisle. So they're not making any changes from what was previously approved in terms of that setback. To summarize phase one, one change that's taking place is that they will need to complete a consolidation plat of the 2 lots so that future construction will occur on a single lot. In phase 2, the number of parking spaces has changed to 28 additional ones will be added. And in phase 3, which is where the rest of the project, including the new temple, would be completed, 84 parking spaces are included with that phase for the total of 116, which is 112 standard and 4 accessible. The final landscape plan, it was adjusted to in accordance with the relocation of the building. In addition to that, there was also discussion about a possible public sidewalk along the front of the property. Right now, 151st Street isn't improved, and at some point in the future, we would anticipate that there would be roadway improvements taking place, and part of those roadway improvements may include a public sidewalk. So the applicant has shifted parkway trees 7 feet to accommodate a 7-foot dedication, which is required for a future sidewalk, just so that if they do put the trees earlier than the final phase and a public sidewalk is required, the trees would not have to be removed. In addition, the trash enclosure has been relocated to the east side of the property. It will be part of the phase 2 parking lot expansion. And then lastly, and most importantly, is that our city's development engineering consultant, Steve Gidley with J.J. Bennett, has reviewed and approved the final site improvement plans, and a letter is included in your packet confirming that. With that being said, if the commission should find the final development plan acceptable, a motion to approve the final development plan for the proposed new temple and ancillary site improvements, subject to several conditions. The first 2 conditions would need to be addressed prior to the committee of the whole meeting, which will be August 2nd. And that would be 1, a revised plat of annexation, changing the signature blocks from 2016 date to 2017 date, and then the plat of dedication for the additional 7 feet of right-of-way to be submitted for review and approval by the city's development engineering consultant, and then ultimately recorded concurrently with any approved annexation agreement. Also, number 2, since the proposed retaining walls are over 3 foot and tall, prior to Phase 3 construction, a structural design plan prepared by a structural engineer would be submitted for review and approval by the city. Prior to Phase 1 construction, a plat of easement must be submitted providing for the stormwater management easement and a public utility easement, including the B-box location. A cost estimate for the improvements associated with each phase is required to be provided for review and approval. Based on those appropriate fees, a letter of credit would be established for each respective phase, as well as the appropriate engineering review and/or inspection fees that may not have been paid. Signage is not part of this review process and will require a separate sign permit for all new signs. However, one condition in particular that needs to be noted is that signage is subject to no LED or electronic signs to be constructed on the property until the properties on either side are rezoned to a non-residential use. And at any time, any signage shall be in compliance with the city sign regulations in effect. And lastly, with the submission of a sign permit, a freestanding sign, a landscape plan shall also be provided. That concludes staff's report. I know the applicant and his team are here this evening to provide any additional information and respond to any questions or comments.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just overall, I can concur with staff's recommendations to approve here. I realize there's a tremendous amount of work involved here, both on the part of the applicant and the staff. With these construction deadlines, in the event that these construction schedule completion dates are not met, what happens? Does it all sunset, or what does that trigger?
Mr. Thanis, by the way, thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, the applicant would come back to the commission and to the city council for an amendment of the agreement to extend the dates, assuming the project's still online. Obviously, we've been doing that. We've been in a process of doing that over the last year or so, so we'd probably go through the same process at that point. There's no provision in the agreement that prohibits the applicant from asking for extensions of the dates, the deadlines. It would be up to the city council for a final decision on whether an extension would be granted.
Thank you.
The 7-foot dedication, I didn't see it on the plans. Is that just going to be put on the plat later?
Yes.
Okay. If the sidewalk goes in along 151st Street, is there going to be some kind of a barrier or fence along the pond because it's 7 feet deep? You don't want somebody wandering into the property and getting hurt. Was that anything that maybe? And on the landscape
Brent,
plan?
may I ask Brent you to have your speaker much closer, mic closer to you, please?
Sorry, Doug.
Thank you. We appreciate all of you. I'm hearing impaired, so I just want to make sure that you guys do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Deb, the pond in the front, if they put a walkway along there, there's a 7-foot drop. Is that something for later? Something that would be addressed, something like that?
As of
for
right now,
safety?
it's not on the plans, but if that's something that needs to be on there, I'm sure that we can have it done.
It'd be something to be engineered at that time.
That could come later. See what happened, Deb, when I put it
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Yeah. The other thing was, on the landscape plan, I kind of tried to overlay on the landscape plan where the utilities are at, and a lot of them lined up with the trees. Can we make sure that the trees aren't planted by the utilities so you won't have issues in the future? I don't know how big the trees are, but the root systems could raise some havoc with the lines you have in there.
Sure.
That's the only comment I had. I think you guys did a great job picking up all the comments that we had last time. Everything looks good. Thanks.
Anybody else? The only comment I have is, I think the timeline's too long. It's been 5 years and nothing's happened except buy the additional property. And 7 years, I think is too long, but that's just my opinion of it, so. Okay, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Motion approved, do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Will Penn. Roll call vote, please.
Ken Shepherd?
Yes.
Scott Likens?
Yes.
Brian Portillo?
Yes.
Bill Maloney?
Yes.
Bill Penn?
Yes.
Dave Oxley?
Yes.
Jim Belota? Motion passed.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Next case, the concept plan for an industrial park between 163rd and 167th Street, east of I-355. The applicant, Ridge Development.
Yes. Chairman, before I begin my brief memo, what I would request is, I believe that we're having some visual difficulties on these monitors. And so for the benefit of the public, when the PowerPoint presentation is made, if anyone would like to let us borrow their copies and their packets so I can give them out to the public, the applicant will come up and do an actual, but I know it can't be seen. Who's here for that?
Thank you. I got some notes in there. No, they're clean. See this? Nice. So I'm gonna have to look as well. Memorize it. Memorize it. I did mark on mine.
Thank you. Okay, so this item was previously presented at the June 13th meeting. Staff had provided an overview of the proposal. The applicant was present to respond to questions and comments. Several residents were in attendance and expressed concerns or asked questions related to site access, truck traffic, road capacity with weight limits, buffering on the north, flooding, impact of the city's new well on existing private wells, lighting, building height, existing retaining wall along the west property line, and the amount of industrial development in the area in general. Staff also referenced the Will County CED plan to address truck traffic in Will County. Due to these concerns raised by residents, extensive discussion by the commissioners regarding the proposal's conflict with the city's I-355 Master Corridor Plan and the status of the Will County CED Freight Mobility Plan, this item was tabled to this evening, so that the applicant can provide supplemental information to support the proposed development. In addition, the commission had requested that our water consultant, Strand Associates, Chris Alm, is here this evening to also address the impacts of the city's new well on any existing private wells.
I'm going to have him come up now and he can, want to have Chris address
Yeah,
it.
do you want Chris to address the issues now, or do you want the applicant to go ahead and do their presentation?
Let Chris address it, then he can go. There's no
Okay.
point in him sitting here.
Thank you very much. I'm Chris Olm with Strand Associates. We've been providing consulting engineering services as it relates to the water and sewer system for the city for several years now. And Pam wants me to give the simple answer, is it going to affect the water table, yes or no? And I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'd love to, Pam, but I just got to go back a little bit. The city currently has less water supply capability than it did in the year 2005. Were abandoned since that time due to various reasons, but you know, there's less water now available than there was in 2005. It didn't matter much during the recession, but now that things are growing again, the city needs another well source very badly. There's some environmentally sensitive areas that are tied to the shallow fractured bedrock aquifer that the city uses for all of its supply, and that these homeowners use for their supply in this area. Due to this environmentally sensitive area, the state and federal regulatory agencies have limited the locations that the city can get water from this aquifer to a very small area. This area is basically halfway between 163rd and 167th, okay? That's the northern boundary. It goes south to about a half mile south of 167th. That's the southern boundary. And it's only east of I-355. So this parcel, there's a parcel to the northeast of this parcel, and then there's a parcel owned by ComEd that have a fracture running through it, a bedrock fracture that is hoped to produce a large amount of water. This is the last areas in the city of Lockport that will be easily, that you can easily get water out of this shallow bedrock. So, that being said, there are 4 properties on 167th Street. There were other residents here last time from 163rd Street. You have municipal wells closer to private wells than this situation would present from the people from 163rd Street, if that makes sense. Those ones on 163rd Street, I don't think will be affected. Other examples in the city would show no effect on those people. The residents, 15504 167th Street is very close to this fractured bedrock line. It may be affected, whether the well goes on this property or it goes on the ComEd piece to the south or the piece to the north. That particular resident may be affected by this. So trying to disassociate the well from this development and say that a well needs to go in this area, it would be in the city's best interest for a well to go in this area. It's a cheaper well. There are very few other options for water quickly right now. We are exploring some of those up on the Prologis piece, but that's the situation there. So typically what would happen is you would try to work with those people that might be affected to connect them to the water system.
Yeah, the one concern that came up was the depth of the residential wells versus the depth of the new one that's being drilled. And obviously, it's going to draw down the water table, and they're not going to have any water. So it might be better to have them serviced off of it if they're in the city limits.
Yeah, no, I don't think that it would draw down the water table and they wouldn't have any water. They may have to lower their pump setting. They may experience less production than they currently receive from their wells, so pumps might have to run longer. We're not dewatering the aquifer by any means. My greater concern would actually be during the construction of the well. It might cause some cloudiness in their well. It might cause some cloudiness issues such as that during the construction. During the long-term operation, if we were performing maintenance or something like that on the municipal well, that might cause some cloudiness or some issues with their well. And like I said, their well depths are around 185.
There's a lot of speculation here. So what I'm getting at is, let's say you're wrong. You could be wrong. Engineers are wrong. We're all wrong sometimes. Although we don't like to say that, but sometimes it happens. So is there a way the city can assure the residents that it's not going to be affected to this fact where they're going to be spending more money on electricity for the pumps to run longer and things like that? It's something that's causing the residents additional money. I don't know from the legal standpoint if there's anything we can do to help them out for relief because of this. I don't know.
The biggest question and concern is that you go out there and drill a well and their wells dry up. Now what?
Yeah.
Who's going to pay to run a water line to their house, water line down 163rd Street, and that expense is the big
These
concern.
people need to have some recourse.
I mean, we all know the answer, but
Yes. And there is currently a water line down 167th Street, right in front of their house, on the other side of the street.
pardon me?
The line that comes from well 12 and well 13 does run down 167th Street to the other side of 15.
Runs to the farm and then on the south
Yeah.
side of the street, and then it runs north across the street and to east.
Correct. So yes.
There's 4 houses or 5 houses there that are not serviced by that water line either on the north side of the road.
I counted 4 property addresses, 15504, 15460, 15442, and 15426.
The 4 on the north side of the road.
Those are on the north side of the road. The ones on the south side are on city water. That's the information I was given.
There's only 1 there.
That farm
Right.
property there, yes. And so, yeah, the recourse to them would be,
The question is, the well's on 163rd Street, Chris.
yeah, you have many wells in town that are much closer to private wells than that particular situation. I did check those wells. You know, well 6 over at Arrowhead is much closer to private wells of the same construction, and I've heard
Well
of...
shows up at 167th in our packet.
Right, but the residents are from 163rd Street that are here concerning this. Nobody from 167th Street is here registered to speak.
Robert, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say his names, but 15504 West 167th Street was one of the residents. It was, my understanding was at the last meeting.
Well,
That is the one with...
Either way, that whole area, the concern is what's gonna happen to the water table? Is it gonna drop and the residents are gonna have to drill their wells deeper, abandon the wells, tie in the city water, and at whose expense then, is the question.
You know, I wouldn't see, so the ones on 167th Street, I would say that one option there is for the city to extend the water line past those houses, hook those up. The ones on 163rd Street, if the well is placed at this location that we're talking about, which is basically just north of Prime Boulevard on 167th Street, you know, I wouldn't see an effect of the water table that far. If we're affecting the water table that far, then we've got a glorious water producer, and you know, I wouldn't see that. There's no signs of that anywhere else. Your wells at well 13 at Gauger, or at Cedar, and 167th has private wells much closer than that. There's a farm just south on Cedar that it has a 209-foot deep well that is, you know, similar in construction to what we're talking about, not affected by well 13 that's out there.
So, Chris, didn't you say we're not going to de-water the aquifers? We're not depleting the amount in there. Even if we had to drill a well there in the city, there's still going to be ample water for the residents around.
Correct. I mean, we've been pumping from this aquifer for many, many years, and the water table is remaining the same. It's rapidly recharged. You get what's called a cone. When you're pumping, you do get a slight cone of depression around the well. You get a slight pull down of the water, very close in proximity to the well. That cone might affect 15504. That would be about the extent of what one would expect. So, correct, we are not dewatering. We're not pumping that much water out of the aquifer. You know, we've got records that date way back that show stable water levels with the same withdrawals out of all your other 6 wells in town.
In this aquifer, do you know where it starts and begins? Have an idea? Because it's probably not just in the city limits, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's very far-reaching. This is a shallow, this is the same shallow bedrock aquifer that Crest Hill, Romeoville, you know, it's on the other side of the river, but this extends way out into, you know, past Homer Glen, you know, it extends very far out.
So the cone of depression influence distance is one property. That's what you're saying? It only stretches for one property, and that's it. All the rest of them, forget it. That's what I'm getting at. What's the influence distance of the new well? How far-reaching can the impacts be? And whether it's a developed lot with a well or an undeveloped lot, are they affected by this at all? That's all.
Yeah.
That's all that I'm trying to get at. You know, I'm trying to protect the people.
Yeah,
that
and
are
it's
paying taxes in here.
without some extensive, without drilling the well, pumping the well, and drilling other wells, and seeing how far the cone of depression extends. You know, nobody can answer that question.
Speculating, yes.
Yeah, it's all speculation. History shows in this area, and experience shows in this area, that it might affect 15504, that cone of depression. But I would be concerned with cloudiness, agitation, maintenance during the construction and maintenance operations, potentially affecting 15504, 15460, 15442, and 15426. Those are the properties, the 4 properties just to the east of this site. But one thing that I have to say is this is the only area left for the city of Lockport to get water out of the shallow aquifer. So whether it's this development or...
We want to do it, we just want to protect people. That's
understood, and I do too. And I think
great
that...
idea. I think it's wonderful.
I think that usually the resolution to this problem or potential problem is to work with those residents to come up with a plan that connects them to the water system.
So with this development, then you're suggesting that the best option is put a water line down 163rd, hook all the houses up to
Seventh.
the water. Well, and 163rd too, is there the concern here?
Well-
167th, and we have a water line, and there's 4 houses. What happens to the other houses on 163rd that this affects, if it affects them?
I think it would affect them.
It's too far away.
This development will have a water line running
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the other thing too, I just want to point out is that, you know, the city is just seeking locations for these wells, as Chris pointed out. And this development is willing to give us one of those sites. We have not planned for the well. We have not even looked at any detailed drawings for the well. The city council hasn't even determined, you know, where the well location is going to go. It's just based on the recommendations that Strand has done, is that this particular area and certain parts of this particular area are good for a well situation. So I guess what will ultimately have to happen, again, whether this project gives us the well site or another project gives us a well site, it'll be another topic for discussion at a later date once the city decides to move forward with the construction of a new well on how it will impact residents and neighbors in the area. At this point in time, it's a little difficult to determine that because we don't really know for sure, is it going to go here, assuming that this project goes through the process. If this project doesn't go through the process, there will be other locations that will have to be evaluated for this well.
Well, yeah, we just wanted to know the pros and cons since we're looking at the whole plan. You know what I'm saying? Kim, that's what we're looking for. This is a concept level
Let's put the
approval,
monkey
so
on
that's all
somebody's
it
back
is.
here. So you're a Joe Blow homeowner that lives on 167th Street, and all of a sudden your well goes dry because they drill a well down the street. Are you prepared to spend $10,000 or $15,000 or whatever amount to hook up water? We're just trying to counteract, have a plan in effect before this happens. So if it happens, because we're rolling dice at either end here, nobody has a definitive answer, that we have a plan in effect.
Right.
And we've protected our residents to the best we can. That's our plan.
And, you know, I'm not here on behalf of this developer. I'm
Right.
here on behalf of the city of Lockport.
Well, yeah, you're here for the city.
And one thing that I will say to that is wherever, if we get a well that is able to be constructed along this seam, you know, it can be constructed with we can shut a well off and figure out a solution to a problem. You know, and nobody wants to spend millions of dollars on infrastructure and then have it sit there until we run more water lines. But if the well has adverse effects on 163rd Street, you know, after you're done telling me I told you so, then we can shut the well down and deal with the problem, whether it's connecting onto the water line that's run up there from this development or another water line, and connect them up and work out. I understand there's financial stuff, and that's beyond, I'm just an engineer. You know, but that's what I want to say, is we can always shut the well off wherever it's at along this stretch, resolve any issues that might come about before we resume pumping again.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, can I just ask you 2 quick questions? How big a well is this going to be?
The well diameter would probably be 16 to 18 inches in diameter.
And what would you
Maybe
guys
24.
hope that well would produce? If you had to say gallons per minute, what would you hope?
I would hope for 10,000 gallons per minute, but likely it will produce somewhere between 500 and 800 gallons per minute, which is what your current wells are producing, between 500 and 800 gallons per minute.
I'd like to thank you for coming in tonight because we really didn't know, have too many facts on it, so thank you for coming in.
No, we have the facts and options.
Providing
Thank
data
you.
and knowledge to us for the
Love
concept.
talking water, so anytime.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Do you,
You gonna do the PowerPoint
does this work or no?
Yeah, everyone on the, you guys can see the monitors, right? When they put their, well, I know, but
Nothing
click
on
on your,
it.
click on
We
your.
can see it.
Are you seeing the PowerPoint come up?
We're seeing what you're saying.
Okay.
Starting
Okay.
out.
It's running.
Well, that's what
It's running. Red
So
now.
they're good, so that's why
Okay,
these are.
how do we enlarge it, graph this thing? There we go. Now, everybody on? Okay.
Slideshow. Slideshow. One more, yeah, there you go.
Which one, from the beginning? Uh-oh, is that the right one or no? You know how to do this?
That's right here.
It's kind of small. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Darcy Bankhauser, representing Ridge Development for the Ridge 355 Commerce Park. A little bit of, excuse me? My personal address or work address? 200 West Madison, Chicago, Illinois. A little bit of background on Ridge Development. We're a national industrial development company led by Jim Martell, headquartered here in Chicago. We've been open for roughly 20 years, and in those 20 years, we've developed approximately 138 million square feet across the country, both on a build-to-suit and speculative basis. We have history working with a number of tenants such as Haynes, L'Oreal, Michelin, FedEx, Post, Johnson & Johnson, to name a few. Our largest footprint here in Chicago is in Wilmington, where we have a intermodal park in partnership with the BN. We currently have 4 million square feet with another 1.5 million square feet under development for a build-to-suit with General Mills. That's slated for completion, I think, at the end of November of this year. So we're currently under contract for approximately 109 acres, sometimes referred to as the Kohler Farm. As Pam mentioned earlier, the site was previously under contract by Hillwood Development, who also received their concept plan approval for a very similar plan back in August of 2015, both from this committee and the Committee of the Whole. Their concept plan obviously was only approved for 12 months, which expired August of 2016. Our proposed concept plan is a natural extension of the 355 Corporate Park to the west. We'll be utilizing the same truck routes and access points via John Lane Crossing and 163rd Street. Our development will have a focus on high-image office storefronts, extensive landscaping, vegetative buffers throughout, as well as over a 575-foot transition from the eastern side of the building to the eastern property line, which is basically just under 2 football fields in length, so a pretty significant buffer between our projects and the residential zoned areas to the east. Let's click. There we go. So on a very macro level, the current industrial development cycle has encountered similar consolidation trends seen in other product types such as office, with their right sizing that's been very popular over the last 5 years or so. Whereas office users have predominantly been shrinking the size of offices and reducing their overall footprint, industrial has seen smaller tenants, typically those less than 300,000 square feet, consolidate their separate office and warehouse operations into one. So basically, in order for us to accommodate the shift in the trends for these sorts of tenants, we as developers have been placing a significant emphasis on high-image building design and amenities, which can be seen in the current slide. So the I-355 master plan as of 2014 reflects the site is zoned for office/business park. We do recognize that our concept plan is a variance from this approved use, but as was the case 2 years ago, the market is not supportive of this type of development in this location. In the approval of Hillwood's concept plan in 2015, they appropriately advised this council on the lack of demand for suburban office. As you can see from the chart on the left, suburban office vacancy was 20% in 2015, and it has increased since then to 22% this year. This shift is not unique to Chicago, but is also taking place all across the country in every major market. This trend is expected to continue into the foreseeable future with continued migration of companies to downtown locations and the consolidation of smaller tenants into higher image industrial product. So this slide shows the Hillwood site plan that was approved in 2015, which is, of course, very similar to our concept plan in that we lay out 4 buildings, all roughly 370,000 square feet, with interior loading docks and trailer parking so that they are not easily visible from the road. So we've worked diligently with community development and Pam and her team to improve upon the previously approved plan over the past 12 months. The differences between the two plans are revised access points, the consolidation of truck traffic to John Lane's Crossing, land dedication to for the city tower and the city well, and the removal of the connection between 163rd and 167th on the eastern side of the property. So we think that the collaboration between ourselves and Pam and her team has yielded a plan that provides significant benefit to the city of Lockport. We have agreed to dedicate approximately 8 acres of land for the city's future use at no cost, with the city of Lockport ultimately being the title holder for these identified parcels. So in the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting last month, there was discussion regarding the Will County Freight Mobility Plan. So since then, we met with John Grueling to discuss this plan. He is leading this project, and we were able to get some valuable insight into what his expectations are and what the expected uses for this report are. So the basis of the study is to recognize the region's competitive advantage in global freight movement, understand the current state of freight movement in the region, and help provide policy advice to guide the future state of freight movement. From our conversation, my impression was that this report is intended to be used at a macro level to help quantify and qualify the impact of freight movement within Will County. A few stats that I found particularly interesting, and I believe were commented on in the last meeting, is that 52% of all private sector jobs in Will County are related to transportation, distribution, and logistics. And also 62% of the freight traffic in Will County is through traffic, which is not originating here in Will County. So the draft report, per John Grueling, is currently in process and is likely to be available within the next 30 to 60 days. We are confident that our plan will be reviewed favorably with respect to the clearly defined truck access and utilization of the designed truck routes. So obviously we understand that industrial development has been facing adversity here in Lockport, with one of your biggest concerns being truck traffic. Our plan makes use of dedicated truck routes that limit truck traffic in the more populated residential areas. The truck circulation in our concept plan funnels traffic through John Lane's Crossing to 163rd Street, which then connects to Gauger Road and I-355, which altogether is less than 1 mile. So our development plan contemplates roughly $100 million of investment into this site. Based on conservative tax assumptions, the project, when complete, should produce just under $2 million in tax revenue, with some adjustment for inflation, and then with the 1.5 roughly million square feet developed, the job creation could be roughly 375 jobs in this location. That is based on an industry standard of 1 job per 4,000 square feet, and that's for light industrial. So again, we'd just like to reiterate our willingness to work with Lockport, both on a public and private initiatives. I want to thank Pam and her team for all their help over the last year. We're very committed to this project, and we hope that the merits of the development garner support from Lockport.
We have 4 people that signed up from the public to speak. Bob Thompson, would you like to speak?
My name is Bob Thompson. I live at 15612 163rd Street, Lockport, Illinois, directly across the street from the proposed warehouse. Before I get started, I'd like to hand out this little copy from the Herald News for the council to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, that is a copy from the Herald News about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I have, I guess, only two concerns. The first one is from the proposed diagram that the warehouse development put out last meeting we were here. It showed that the entrance to the warehouse development was going to be about directly across the street from our residence. And it was mentioned by one of the other residents, Guy, last week, that they use the John Lane crossing and keep the truck traffic inside their own property, and that's what that handout refers to that I gave you. It's just to show that other business parks have thought about it and have tried to do that, and that's all I'm asking the Planning Commission to consider, is that maybe this would be possible to alleviate having that entrance right across the street from our residents. There's actually only 3 residents there that are directly affected, and they've been there for a while. One of the homes has been there for over 100 years, the other over 65 years, and the other over 25 years. And I've lived in each of them at one time or another. It's not like we're newcomers. We're not coming after the warehouses and infringing on their driveways and right-of-ways. It's actually the other way around. So I'm just asking that you consider that. Maybe there is a way to alleviate that and keep us from having to face that truck traffic every day. Now, I didn't hear too much, my hearing is bad, about what the well man said, but that was my other concern, was the well that the city of Lockport is proposing. I know they said last month at the meeting that we didn't have to worry about that because these are deep wells. Well, back in the 1970s, when Lockport put their well in on Farrell Road by Division Street, it was in the 500-foot range. And every resident on 163rd Street, they called it 7th Street then, had to either drill their wells deeper or drill a new well. It lowered the water table that much. Now, I can speak exactly from Gauger Road to Cedar Road. Now, on the west side of Gauger Road, I only, excuse me, I only know of 2 or 3 families that had to do it. But everybody between Cedar and Gauger at that time had to do it. Most of us only had 4-inch casings then, and we couldn't drill a new well because the bores are bigger than that, so we all had, I mean, we couldn't drill deeper, so we all had to drill new wells. But it is something that has happened, and maybe, I didn't understand everything the gentleman said, maybe they've taken that in consideration, but it looks like if this development goes through, we'll not only have the luxury of living across from warehouses and having trucks 24 hours a day, we'll also have to spend between $10,000 and $20,000 drilling a new well. And as far as tapping onto the city water, there's no water lines by us. They don't exist. So it's kind of impossible to tap onto the city water unless they do install water lines. So those are my 2 concerns, and I thank you for letting me speak to you today.
Next, we have Kevin Zach.
Interesting. It's a big footprint. Cedar to Gauger.
I have 3 of these people.
We can share. Thank you.
I've been here for 21 years, right this summer, so it feels a shame to me that you want to change things to get us off the property. So, anyway, I've got all this stuff. I've had our house was made here. It was actually made in 1937. So, here it is. But otherwise, the thing I couldn't say, I have nothing that I couldn't say anything here. So, let me go. Take care.
Thank you. Next, we have Bruce Kozlowski.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Kozlowski. I live at 15433 West 163rd Street. A lot of my concerns are the same with Mr. Thompson there. But listening today, from what I heard about the well, the deep well, and the maybes, and we shouldn't probably have a problem, I think it's a pretty poorly engineered project. And I see no reason why they can't come up with more complete plans and detailed plans and construction plans on that for the city of Lockport and the neighboring villages here. There are a lot more wells in the area than the gentleman said there were. To say they'll shut off the well if there's a problem, well, you know, after the damage is done, you want to shut off the well and come up with a new plan then. It doesn't seem very well thought out. Makes me feel that the rest of the plan probably wasn't that well thought out. And I only ask that you really consider this carefully. It's a beautiful place to live, always has been, and the city of Lockport has always done a lot of good things, and I would hope that they would not take this lightly. Just please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Guy's, I don't want to pronounce it. What's that? Okay.
I think Mr. Thompson said it perfectly. I just wanted to reiterate the importance of how strongly we feel about the well and the entrances across the street from our homes. We're all good neighbors, and we have no problem with development. Things have to move, things have to grow. We would just expect and hope that you hold Ridge Development to a high standard and working with the village, especially over this water situation. That's about all I got for now. Thank you.
Sir. Okay. You want to address some of these concerns? And two big concerns, the entranceway.
The entranceway. So we only have one access point that we would be installing on 163rd, which is closer to the eastern side of the property. John Lane's Crossing obviously is already there, and we would be doing some improvements to 163rd, and also we've talked to Pam about working out some sort of way to help with some improvements in front of Panettone's site as well, or 355 Corporate Park. So at this point, I think that utilizing John Lane Crossing for the truck traffic. The other access point is predominantly for auto traffic, just regular vehicles. I don't even think that it's going to be available for trucks. I don't understand why they would go further past their destination to turn in. In terms of the city well, that is something that was asked of us to provide, and we were amenable to it. If you guys have a different location for the city well, we'd be fine just keeping the land ourselves. So again, we were just going to try to be amenable to what you guys are looking for and what you guys need. We know that you have very limited resources in terms of where you can place it, given the situation. But we are open to working with you guys in any way that we can.
So that I heard correctly and everyone else did. Your truck access point will be
John Lane Crossing, correct.
East entrance is for
cars. Yes, correct.
Okay, what do we got? Comments?
This seems to be presented as a package deal, in essence saying you can't have the business park without the wells, and you can't have the wells without the business park. I don't see how one directly affects the other. But I concur with the concerns raised by the residents about the wells. There should be enough water, but and the other thing is that the 355 corridor master plan City spent a lot of time and money, a lot of my time developing it. We revised it just 3 years ago. The applicant mentions that right now the demand for warehouses is up and the demand for office parks is down. Well, we knew that 3 years ago. That's really not news. But this is sub-area 21 that clearly states should be developed for an office park, warehouse distribution uses, and other uses generating significant truck traffic should be discouraged. I just can't ignore that. And if this were to go ahead, the property to the east, section 22, said this area should be developed for residential uses, primary or single-family residences. If we put this up on property 21, property 22 really becomes worthless for other than agricultural uses. Nobody's going to put anything there if this goes in. So I just can't ignore what the corridor master plan says, and I really can't support this proposal.
I have a couple questions. Whose jurisdiction over Gauger from 100 heading north to 159th Street?
That's Homer Township.
That's the township. So
Yeah.
is that roadway built? I know that it's being used today, but is it built to 100,000 pounds, or is it?
Yes, Pat and Tony paid it.
What's that, 100,000 pound capacity? 83, whatever. Okay. So in 2015, when it was approved originally, imagine things are different in Lockport today. How many more developments, I'll call them truck terminals, have been built, have been approved for construction or under construction? I'm sure there's probably several million square feet more today than there were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I could be completely wrong, but being out here, that seems, that's what I see anyway. You made a mention of the CED report as a macro, and it's good that John Grewley and the CED is looking at it. I've said this many times, Will County is a transportation hub. It's going to be, it's growing. But the impacts are at the micro level to Lockport. We're seeing that every day. In my opinion, I think you missed your boat. Not you, but I think the boat was missed in 2015 when it lapsed. And I just, for that reason, for the trucking impacts that we're seeing today in Lockport, till we get that under control, and with the comprehensive plan, I'm leaning with Bill and not supporting this as well.
Interesting. Anyone else? You get no comments? I always have comments. Jim had mentioned the infrastructure. Is there a preliminary agreement that addresses the pavement on 163rd being reconstructed? I know Panatone said they're rebuilding Gauger, but are they going all the way to the ramps on 355? Are they reassessing the signal at 159th and Gauger? Are they reassessing the need for a traffic signal at Gauger and 163rd?
That's been discussed many times, that traffic signal at 163rd.
So,
and as the traffic study shows, right now it's not needed, but as this stuff continues, it will be readdressed, and the adjoining owners that have put the warehouses in are on the hook for paying for it.
is that
As
true?
they would, this is a concept plan. Part of
Right.
the concept plan is, do you like it or not? The engineering and everything will be done next, and the road improvements and all that will be addressed in an annexation agreement.
Is there a preliminary annexation agreement though
No.
drafted?
No.
We're concept.
Talking to staff, talking to staff, talking to staff.
You know the answer.
Yeah, the biggest thing that Bill and Jim brought up, and I brought this up last time too, is we paid a lot of money for this 355 corridor plan, and it's pointing in the other direction, and it's saying it should be office. And that was addressed in the packet where I think you said there's a 21% vacancy rate in the office market.
suburban
and
office.
there's only a 7% vacancy rate, I think you said, in the truck, in the industrial market. Is that?
Industrial,
Because I don't
yeah.
have my packet with me,
Correct.
they're passed out.
Yeah, suburban office vacancy rates today in 2017 are 22%. For industrial, light industrial office warehouse space, it's roughly around, it's just under 7%.
Okay, so when this 355 corridor plan was put together, those numbers were still the same, yet they still wanted office here. Was that correct? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, I wasn't here when that plan was put into effect, so I'm not sure what methodology that the consultant who prepared the plan for the city at that time used. As a former consultant, I can tell you that when we would do comprehensive plan updates, we wouldn't necessarily look at, percentages of market conditions per se, because at that time, the market until the economy crashed was pretty much, you could determine how land use was being developed, what would make sense where. Once the economy kind of tanked, those thought processes kind of went out the window, because now nothing was happening. And if you recall, when the city did do that plan, we purposely wrote in some flex spaces in certain areas of the city. Now, this obviously was not one of those areas for a flex, type of land use designation. But again, I don't know, intimately what the methodology was at the time that proposal for the update came before you.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is there wasn't, in 2014, when they drafted this report for 355, there wasn't a dip in the data that they show in their packet. If there was a dip, in other words, when the office was approved in that year, it was still at 20%. 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the same today as it was 3 or 4 years ago, so that tells me that we should not be reassessing that area for the comprehensive plan, because that, I think, was brought up also last month when we were talking about it. So I'm bending toward Jim and Bill on this too then. That's all I got.
Hi, my name is Adam Marshall. I'm with Newmark at 8750 West Bryn Mawr in Chicago. I'm the commercial real estate broker working with Ridge, and I was here 2 years ago with Hillwood when you guys passed the concept plan. And
Which expired.
pardon?
Which expired.
That's correct. But in talking about the numbers, one of the reasons for looking at industrial development was because of the high office vacancy rate, which has increased since then. And that the big driver for demand in Chicago, in the corridor here, and across the country is that, industrial, warehouse, and office has been performing strong and even stronger today than it was 2 years ago, which was one of Hillwood's basis for getting this approved for industrial development at that time.
And something else that I think they brought up too is there's properties to the north and east that really may never be developed as residential if this goes in. That's the bigger thing that I'm looking at too, is on the zoning map. I'm looking around the footprint of this site, and it's all residential. If it ever wants to be developed, it can't be developed. I think there's a memo in our packet from one of the residences that owns that properties, and he had mentioned that.
Yeah, but read the letter too.
Anyways.
By zoning, I'm for it, if not, no.
Anyways, we did the 355 plan for a reason. We didn't waste the money and just push it off to the side. As commissioners, we have to look at all the different data sets that we have, and that's one of them. So that's all I got. Go ahead.
I'm not an expert in industrial warehouses, distribution warehouses, but could you explain a little bit about the impact of truck traffic, the number of trucks coming in and out, the likelihood of them coming in and out at all hours of the day or night when you have bays on one side of a warehouse versus bays on both sides of a warehouse, where I understand that's sort of through?
Right. So these have not been designed as cross docks, which is where you have loading docks on both sides of the building. So these all have loading docks on just a single side, and all of those are interior-facing loading docks. So you won't have to deal with the noise and the beeping and the lights and stuff if we do find a tenant that has after-hour operations. Given the fact that we are planning this as a speculative development, I really can't say too much in terms of what the expectation is for truck traffic. I know that there will be some, but I cannot say for sure how high or how low that count will be. But given the way that we've designed it, we've tried to protect the residents as much as possible for noise issues, stuff like that, so that, you know, they're not going to be able to see people loading the trucks or the trucks leaving the building, that type of thing, because it's all going to be interior facing. So their view from, like, say from 163rd on the north side, it'll be all building. There will be no loading docks on that side. So it'll be building and parking area.
So this development is going to be obviously similar to the one next to it, and also similar to the development east of 355 south of 143rd.
Yes, it'll be very similar to the 355 development that Panattoni completed.
Okay, and if the entrance on the east side is limited to cars
Auto
only,
traffic, yep.
and trucks are going in John Lane Crossing.
Correct.
Trucks would not be going any further on
Than
the
John Lane
public
Crossing.
road than
Correct.
they will be going with the current development. That
Correct.
And really the well issue is something that is in the city of Lockport. That's a city of Lockport issue. Whether this is built here or not, the city of Lockport may still be faced with. We've got to drill a well somewhere when push comes to shove, and we may need to accommodate residents that are in Lockport or not in Lockport that may be impacted by that well. And I guess my other comment is the office, general office 02 is what is slated for development south of 167th, the prime business park, which is at vacant except for the bow dome and the public works building for a long time, and it just sits. Prime business park right here.
Those are a smaller scale than what we have here.
And that's
Yeah, Prime Business Campus is developed under straight zoning, O2, which does allow for a minimal amount of manufacturing, however, or warehousing. However, where the real limitation comes in is that each building is only allowed 2 dock doors. So that's what prohibits the opportunity for larger boxed industrial development to take place. In addition to that, the property is very encumbered by wetlands. So it would tend to lead itself to a smaller scale type of development. So it's not just office, but it does allow for some manufacturing. If you recall, meat and manufacturing was approved out there a few years ago for a 40,000 square foot manufacturing building, which did not move forward, but it was approved out there. And they were able to comply with the 2 loading docks. So that's why they ended up out there. So it's just it's an interesting zoning district because it doesn't, it would lend itself to more office-oriented type development just by virtue of the fact that the dock doors are limited to 2 per building.
I guess that parcel butts up to the east, right to residential, so I'm sure that was
A lot of wetlands.
a lot of wetlands, and I'm sure it's about a transitional type of zoning too to get to the residential.
Which is the same thing we're looking at with this property.
I guess my own personal opinion on this is that there are windows of opportunity both for private businesses and for municipalities like the city of Lockport. I appreciate the comments coming from the residents who've lived there much longer than I've lived in Lockport. Guy's comment, Guy, I appreciate your comments about development's going to occur. How can that development be as respectful as possible to those who
live around that area. And I think that Ridge has put forth some explanation here that's helped me understand better impact. And I think from a much bigger picture, from all of us who live in the state of Illinois, what's happening with the state of Illinois. As a younger person who'd like to live here till I retire, which is 20 years plus down the road, where there are opportunities for investment for folks to continue to invest in the state of Illinois, I think that's something I'm going to try to consider and support, as opposed to being faced with, you know what, we just need to move out of the state because at some point we're all going to be in a great deal of hurt. So my inclination is that at a concept level, I'm okay seeing this going forward, but there's no guarantees, again, at a concept level, that this would be approved. I think the biggest impact is the truck traffic, and that I think is the biggest question mark out there that impacts the lives of the people in the audience here, as well as my family who uses Gallagher Road all the time, 163rd, 167th, all the time, go to Bodum. So, you know, I think limiting that truck traffic to the exact route that is on that plan, since it's already going to be there, is crucial. I drive through the business park sometimes in the evenings. It's up between 143rd and 159th, 151st, and it seems like a ghost town. Never anything going on there. At least that's my experience right now. You know, when that's totally built out, that could be different.
Well, I just want to make one comment that if we were to follow the I-355 master plan, the recommendation was to put in a connection between 163rd and 167th, connecting at Prime Business Park. So in the event that we were to follow that master plan and install that road, you would see truck traffic on that road flowing from Division Street or 167th up that route. So what we had tried to do by eliminating that removes it so that there's only one option for them to get in. And so it's also the most direct route to the interstate as well. So that's why we have designed it to funnel all the truck traffic to John Lynch Crossing.
And that proposed connection to 167th, we talked last time about how it's probably infeasible with the grades that are there next to the overpass, and limiting any chance of truck getting down to 167th, I think makes sense, unless there's something that the fire department demands to have access from there. Keep it that one spot. They need a second access for a fire truck that comes in through the automobile.
Correct.
Side on the east.
Yep.
Those would be the only trucks going in emergency vehicles.
Correct.
That's all I have.
We have two issues here. The water, that's on the city's back. And the residents, we know, you know where we're standing on that. We have to deal with that later if it ever happens. And now we have Business Park. The 143rd Street Park is a prime example of a built around residential. They've been a good neighbor to the people there. They're always happy. Nobody's complaining. That's it. Where are we at?
Dave, can I ask the city staff one question?
Sure. Absolutely.
When the truck traffic goes down to Gallagher towards 159th, you would imagine most of them would use 355. Are they allowed to take a left and go down 159th Street into Lockport?
Sure. Yes.
Yes, it's a state route.
Okay, that's my only worry is I know you would hope all that traffic would go down 355. But you know someone's gonna go left and go west on 159th.
Well, yes, and Ken, that was a discussion last month. All the traffic we're seeing come from Crest Hill, Romeoville, from Old Dominion, from UPS, from FedEx. They're shortcutting right to 355 instead of going north and then coming back south, which is their right, it's a state road. But we as a city have not addressed any changes in our truck routes. And I think we all feel strongly that we need to do that.
They could also turn right and go east on 159th over to Orland or beyond, because that's all, still a state route that way.
I just don't like if they did, I don't like any more traffic coming into downtown Lockport. We're a major thoroughfare for heavy truck traffic right now, and people always say, why don't you make it like downtown Plainfield? It'll never be like that. It's a state road, it's 4 lanes, we will never be where we can close down roads like Plainfield did and make the quaint little cafes and that. And where else can you go if you get across the bridge?
Plainfield moved the state road to make that happen. We can't do that.
Yeah.
We got nowhere to move it to.
That's my one concern. We can't have anything else going west.
Yeah, that's gonna make it worse.
Okay, what's your pleasure, Eric?
I just want to make one last comment in regards to ML's Park. These are all institutionally owned buildings, and, it's in their best interest, it's in our best interest as a landlord to be good neighbors to the residents nearby. Ultimately, the long-term owner of these projects will be pension funds. They try to avoid as much animosity and adversity as possible, but they are looking for investment, and these are the types of products that they target. So you can count on us and the future owners eventually to be respectful of the needs and the wants of the residents nearby.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion in the affirmative.
Pardon me?
I'll make a motion in the affirmative to approve the concept plan as presented.
Before you make a second, I just want to reiterate that the original staff report from last month is in your packet, and that it does stipulate the suggested motion with conditions. So if this would move forward, the conditions, you would have to decide, are those the conditions you would want to keep with your motion?
Page 4.
Page 4.
Nobody seconded that yet, right? I can amend that motion? Motion to approve the concept plan, page 4, subject to the following conditions, which I thought we talked about not doing conditions on concept plans, but subject to the 9 conditions recommended by staff.
They're just very general conditions. They don't stipulate it with any specificity. Right.
Do we have a second?
As long as John Lane Crossing is the truck in and out, and the east entry is car only.
Does it say that in there?
It doesn't say that specifically
Says
in here.
coordinate
because
with the owners.
That's where this is concept. We're just communicating to Ridge that if it comes back at a preliminary and trucks are going on the east side, I'm voting no. Right now, I'm
Understood.
voting probably yes. So that's what I
Understood.
sure is in here.
No, she can't. Was there a second?
Well, we just got it.
Was there a second? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
So Scott, did you second it?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did
Are
not
we
second
okay
it?
to
Yeah.
make a second? A second?
Can we hear the public before
Any
we vote?
comments?
Can we hear the public before we vote?
Do we want to do that?
Roll call.
Any other
I'd like
comments?
to.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ken Shepherd?
Yes.
Scott Likens?
Yes.
Brent Porfilio?
No.
Bill Maloney?
No.
Will Penn?
Yes.
Dave Oxley?
No.
And Jim Beletta?
No.
Motion has not passed.
Goes to the committee of whole when. Strange.
This goes to committee of the whole.
No motion. 1, 2, 3. No motion.
It's gonna go through the city. It's gonna go through the city.
5.
And when does this go to the committee of the whole?
This will go to the committee of the whole on August 2nd.
Thank you.
This will go to the committee of the whole, city council, August 2nd, 7 PM in this room.
Yes.
They have the right to present it to the city council.
4-3. August 2nd, which is a Wednesday.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in for a second, just so we have a clear record on this. I believe the motion that Mr. Bellata made was a motion to approve the concept plan, correct?
Yes.
And the motion failed on a 4-3 vote, correct? That's everybody's understanding. So it's your intent that this goes with a negative recommendation then? The 4 who voted no, if you were to make a motion to reject the concept plan, is that how you'd want it to go to the city council, or does it just go with a failed motion on the motion to recommend?
Is there a difference?
Right.
Yes. So it'll go to the city council as no recommendation or a recommendation not to approve. Is that your intent?
Yes, it should
I
be.
believe so.
All right.
I think Jim brought it up to get a vote, and
Yes.
move forward with that.
I think that was your question, correct, Pam?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, just so we're clear, so the city council understands what you wanted them to take away from your meeting.
And by the way, thank you for coming tonight, Tom. Good
My
to see you.
pleasure.
Okay, we're going to have a little presentation by our new attorney. And before we get started, I do apologize. I did not introduce Will Penn as our new member at the beginning. Everyone, this is Will.
Will?
And I have a couple things, Mr. Chairman. If you're not coming to the meeting, Pam needs to know. If you're going to be late, Pam needs to know. Because if the meeting starts at 7 and we don't have a quorum, and you're coming at 10 after because of your work and because
Can
of
I
the train.
contact her on her
No,
cell?
let me finish.
Can I? Is that the way to contact her, though? Is by her cell?
We'll get to that.
We'll get to
But
that.
we may dismiss the meeting, even though, if we don't know you're coming.
If we don't have a quorum?
We don't have a quorum. So that's why it's very important that everybody communicates and lets her know.
I'm all about that,
Okay,
yes.
we got that clear? Jim, you understand that?
I can't make the train go, can't make the train go faster.
What'd I do? Okay, go ahead. You got a question?
Yeah, if I'm running late, like 5-10 minutes like tonight and last month, do I contact Kim, like a half hour before the meeting to make sure we got a quorum? And I'm running late, now the quorum is, you know, it's
Four
four
for a
people,
quorum.
it's 4 people, and if there's 4 at the
You can
opening of
call
the
me
meeting.
or Pam.
Okay.
Either one.
I don't
Yeah.
want to disturb
And-
people
and
during the meeting.
understand, I know your job and the train, and I understand that, but I'm just saying, you know, if we've only got 3 people, it's like, okay.
Yes.
But if we know that in 7 more minutes Brent's gonna be here,
Before 7, I'll contact one of you.
there we go.
Yeah,
And
well,
I'll say
we're-
quorum question mark, and you'll say yes.
Yes or no, yeah, okay.
I would prefer if you could contact Dave, only because we're kind of here early sometimes, so we might not necessarily be at the office to get emails or voicemails.
I got it, so.
Good.
Yes.
Shouldn't the assumption be that we'll be here unless we state otherwise, though?
Well, there's been some confusion, but if you're not, yes. Some people have chosen to not show up and not tell anybody.
Well, it says right here.
Well,
Right.
and
Right.
That's why I.
so you
Well,
have to
I'll
read.
put a new notice in
It's
there,
important to read
but I
the
think
text.
Dave has spoken.
Yes.
No more.
Add that to it. Call Dave if you're gonna
So
be
at any
late.
rate, Sonny wants to straighten us out.
Okay, yes. Back to the topic at hand. Chairman and commission members, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to go over some of the responses that I've come up with based upon the joint special meeting that we had 2 weeks ago on some of the processes. And I think the case in point today, a couple cases in point today, kind of shows that we do need to kind of tighten up some of the process. And the memo, and the reason why I don't want to start the process and the new procedure today was because there are old cases that were coming before the commission, and I didn't want to start from, you know, from the middle of everything. So I don't know if there's any particular questions that you have, but the suggested process is included in that in the attachment guideline for hearing before the commission, and it's not set in stone. I wanted to find out from you if there's anything that you wanted added or eliminated, but looking at the Lockport's ordinance, we do have a requirement that the hearing, prior to the hearing, anyone who's testifying must be sworn, given the oath to state the truth, nothing but the truth. So I don't know if we want to start that process because apparently it hasn't been done. And
Well, I would say you're our legal advice.
yes,
I would.
Yes, I would recommend doing it. I would also recommend setting the, I guess, educating the public members beforehand, and it would be the chair's duty to do that, and also to.
You're going to drop this.
Yes, yes, and there's suggested language that you have in there. I do want to also, I would add in there that anyone who is present kind of refrain from having any obvious loud objections, clapping, anything like that, because that is disrespectful of the person who's speaking and also the process. So, but if the members of the public knew that you're not supposed to clap or boo from the get-go, and that would kind of alleviate some of the objections later on and the vocal objections.
Right.
Yeah. So anything else that you wanted in there? Is this something that the commission is, giving the consensus of the staff to put up there on the big screen, or if you want to read it? And I think one of the attachment also includes the difference of what a concept plan is, what a preliminary development plan, and what a final plan is. And that way, the members of the public realize that just because a concept plan is approved doesn't necessarily mean that it's binding, that the city has to automatically approve the preliminary plan. The preliminary plan would only be approved if it's consistent with what was approved at the concept level. And the final plan would be approved only if there's substantial compliance with the original concept plan, of course, a preliminary plan also. So then if you put it out in the big screen, the public will know, hey, just because we approve the concept plan doesn't mean that we can't put any conditions later on, or if there's any concerns that come up later on during the preliminary process and the final process, that you can't add any additional condition.
Right.
And I think that was some of the concerns that the public members have was, well, if you approve the concept plan, this means this, it's going to be approved.
Yeah, and the concept is basically, well, we agree with the generalization of what you want to do.
And generally, the concept plan under our ordinance lasts only for a year, unless you specify that it will last longer. So I know there was a case where the original plan was approved 5 or 6 years ago, and usually by ordinance it's 1 year unless it's approved for a longer period.
Can I ask you a question on the concept plan? And even kind of as it relates to the comprehensive plan, and Tom, you might even have some opinion on this. If it's in the comprehensive plan, zone, whatever, it's allowable use in there, and we deny it. I'll say we as the city. I'm not saying this body right here. They have full rights to go to the courts and say this is allowable use in that. They can't stop it from doing it, correct?
And that's not necessarily true. I mean, there.
I agree. Not necessarily true. But what are our odds of winning that case?
Well, it depends on other circumstances. From working at the city of Peoria, we had a case where the comprehensive plan called for O2. It was denied for various reasons, traffic and everything else. So, there's still wiggle room for the city to argue that the concept plan was, just because it said O2 doesn't necessarily mean that it's a recommended plan. It doesn't necessarily bind the city to that plan. So
then let's take that and move it forward to the concept plan stage. We're asked to make decisions based on 8.5 by 11 drawing with very little information. And there's some important information which we would all want to know. The truck impact. I'll just use the truck because that's obviously the topic, right? The trucks, the building heights, blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff should be part of the concept plan, I understand that. But all of that information will have a big impact on how we would vote, I would think. Now, we come to the preliminary plat stage, we don't know that information, we vote for it, we have that information for the preliminary plat stage, sorry, I can't talk. Now we have that information, we don't like it because of the impact of the trucks, the building heights, whatever the case may be. What the developer now says, oh, everybody got approved preliminarily. They, substantially, it's the same. You know, this is where I'm getting at. This is where these concept plans put, I think, the city and this board and the staff in a very tough situation. I understand what is there, and it's a good tool, but it's tough.
And I think adding to that, when they come in and they don't have a user for the building, and they come up with, well, it's going to be good paying jobs and it's going to be minimal truck. Well, if you don't have a user for the building, how do you know what a good paying job is and there's going to be no truck traffic?
Well, and again, the ordinance states that it's not a guarantee that the preliminary plan would be approved.
Right.
So it's, again, the devil's in the detail. When they come back with the preliminary plans, there could be conditions that the city may require that will address those concerns. So, you know, if you look at the idea of the concept plan, it's to kind of field out whether or not the city's amendable for that approval before the developers or the property owners put in that money for the preliminary plan, because it's costly to hire engineers and all the experts to come up with the preliminary plan. So in a way, it's to throw out the idea on it. Obviously, you know, if it's not an ideal that the city would be approving, then they could take their resources elsewhere. So that's.
So what you're saying is, say tonight, say we said, okay, we think more light trucking terminals, whatever you want to call it, warehousing is okay there, and then that's not opening, and then we come back later and we say, no, we don't like it. You don't think that opens up the city for liability?
No, because by our ordinance it says there's no guarantee that you're going to approve the preliminary plan. Because there could be.
I've been on the other side. We've lost in court because the comprehensive plan said this, the developer went because all the neighbors came out against it and made a big stink about it, and emotionally you voted no, and we lost because it was in the comp plan that it's allowable use in that.
Yeah,
So I've been through it, and that's why when we're saying no or not, I believe you.
I think there's a
But
difference.
I've been on the other side of the law.
Yeah, there's a difference between the comprehensive plan and the concept plan. The comprehensive plan is a zoning map of where the city approved how ideally the city would be developed. So the concept plan is a little bit, is different from that because it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to, I guess the comprehensive map will come into play, it may come into play, but it's two separate things. The concept plan is the development plan, whereas the comprehensive map is the zoning map of if the area was supposed to be zoned, it's currently 03, but the comprehensive plan may show 04. So that's the zoning of how the city would develop the undeveloped areas.
And I think too, when we had the one particular industrial project that came through, and I shall not mention just because it's back end. But, I think where we got hooked is that we really got too detailed on that plan. And I think if you recall, Mike from Tesca indicated that where you run into the risk with concept plans and what you do in the next step at preliminary becomes problematic when you get too detailed at the concept plan stage. Because the more detail you cause that applicant to commit to and that we commit to, the more you're establishing the guidelines now for that preliminary development plan. So the applicant's going to leave that situation and think, okay, I have all these details on my concept plan. So if I produce a preliminary plan that has these details that the city directed me to do at that time, then my project should be approved. So if you keep it general, and perhaps we can work together and structure some language in the approving resolution that really kind of stipulates and drives home the fact to the applicant that this is a concept only. So if you submit your preliminary and there's something about the details that you provide that are not acceptable, you know, it doesn't necessarily guarantee an automatic approval like a preliminary into final does. And so we ran into that when I worked in another community. I used to have applicants, when they would go through the concept plan process, pretty much make the assumption like, well, I got concept plan approval, so you should approve my plan. And I actually worked with the city attorney there, and we structured language in the approving ordinance or resolution, I forget what it was over there, that pretty much clarified that just because you're getting this concept plan approval, once the detailed facts and information is provided, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get automatic, you know, so something similar, so that it really drives home to these guys and gals that it's not an automatic approval just because you get concept plan okay.
But preliminary plans are never turned down, that I can remember. You've been here for half my life. Have you ever seen a preliminary plan you turned down? No, that would be ripe for court probably, Jim.
Yeah, we would.
Oh, yeah. That would be probably more of a statistical, you know, you're gonna lose that one if you.
What about, let's just take the zoning classification, where special use permit is required, and they meet all the special use requirements, and you turn it down. Then where are you at?
Well, the special use is a little bit different. I mean, for special use, you are asking for specific requirements. It's not, it's more detailed than the concept plan. Right. So it's...
Like the special use tonight, that still goes to the city council for final approval.
Mm-hmm.
We're only advisory in it. Now, if somebody wants relief from an ordinance, we have the final say on that. So if we say, if they can't convince us they're entitled to relief from the ordinance, they don't get it.
And for special use, you have to have specific findings of facts. And that's one thing that we do need to kind of tighten up, is that there's really, you know, once you deliberate, you should, one of the things about deliberating is after you have the public comment and you close the public hearing, don't bring the petitioners back up, and you're supposed to actually deliberate amongst yourselves and not necessarily ask the petitioners any more questions, because then obviously that opens up the floor for the objectors to question the petitioner. So, you know, usually try to limit any questions that you may have at the public hearing level, close it, deliberation, and then deliberation should be done without any further
So
comments.
at public hearing, we should ask the developer questions if we have.
You can ask the developers any questions.
After the public hearing's closed, just us, that's it.
Yeah.
And the public should understand that they can't come back to the microphone a second time.
Yes.
Like the one guy did 4 times last time or whatever.
And that's one thing that I didn't add to the guidelines, is that you could announce before the hearing, once we close the public hearing, we deliberate amongst ourselves, and there's no any further comments during deliberation.
So you're going to send us those guidelines? So we
Yes.
got them.
Well, it's included, but I will add.
Amend it.
Add further things, including, you know.
This was very helpful. Whoever put this together. Thank you.
That would be.
Did we pass out that truncated page tonight? No?
It's on the last page, I think.
Could I bring up another topic here? Well, as long as the ball game's probably over.
I didn't get it, Sonia.
Oh, you didn't get it?
I don't
Okay.
think.
It's included in the packet?
It was in there.
It's like this.
It was in there, dude.
You didn't get a copy?
I got it.
It was attached to the minutes from the.
Wait a minute,
No,
okay, it's in the
it's
middle.
right there, it's right there.
under-
It's
yes,
right
I
there.
did- I did, you know what,
You're running to the meeting to be early and you missed going through the packet.
Gentlemen,
Jay, right? I got you. Be happy now.
I took my time and read through everything. I was a little
I
late.
did,
But if there's anything else you would like
I did say this.
to add?
Got to open this thing up before you leave.
Believe me, I did.
I've been up here,
I can prove I read mine Friday.
I've been up here a little over 10 years, and as I recall, I was told back then, I had to recluse myself if I'd ever done business with the applicant. Well, that seemed a little bit extreme. Now, recently, we had a proposal to remodel and expand the Aldi store. Well, all of us have shopped at Aldi at one time or another. If we had done that, we couldn't have done anything. So we need some better guidelines for the Newark people as to when it's appropriate to recluse yourself and when it isn't.
And there's statutory conflicts of interest, TIF statutes specifically prohibits, certain type of percentage of ownership on the area, and there's also common law a conflict of interest. And typically if you have any ownership or
Financial
you have
interest of any kind?
Major interests, and it doesn't include like companies where there's public trading. Like if you had stock in AT&T, it doesn't mean that you can't deliberate on a proposal for one of the smaller cell towers or something like that, or Verizon. Just because you use Verizon cell phone doesn't mean that you can't deliberate and vote on Verizon stuff.
And I brought it up for the benefit of the Newark members here because it may not have been made clear to them.
If there's any part of financial gain you can have, you gotta.
It's better to disclose it, and I will send a little mini guide for conflict. Obviously it doesn't cover everything.
My
but if it
investments are
helps.
all in mutual funds. I have no idea what I own.
Yeah. Well, those are publicly held stock in a company that you don't have to, it won't conflict you out from deliberating. So.
Now, one other thing under the, not Freedom of Information Act, the Public Meetings.
Open Meetings Act?
Open Meetings Act.
Now, has everyone complied with it? Will and
I did.
You did?
Yep.
Did you file your certificate with the clerk?
I sent it to,
You said you sent it to Donna.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Good. Everyone else can?
I'm gonna do it.
Gonna do it.
You only have to do it once. For the, for the commissioners, you do it only once and you're good.
It takes 40 minutes on the computer.
I'm on some other boards.
I wrote a note to myself already.
Okay. I want to point it out because it's an important factor down there.
But were there any questions from the joint special meeting that I didn't answer in the memo, or?
I got a copy of the booklet, still to read it, but I don't read that fast, but I'll work on it.
It's in 2012.
The zoning and stuff, I think it's gonna be pretty interesting.
The only question I had is, are we going to get paid for attending it?
What was it?
It's a meeting. It must be.
Yeah, it's a meeting. It was an ordinance meeting. We get $100 a meeting.
What we get?
But it'd be nice if we could be there.
Yeah, I think the ordinance requires us to actually post bonds too, but I don't think we actually enforce that.
Bill, it was a meeting.
Bring it up to Ben. Somebody's got to come up with what's
It's a meeting, Bill.
Hey, we get 3-figure salaries. You guys get 6-figure salaries. Come on.
Hey, Bill, you didn't get that coupon from Culver's?
I think,
Scoopy.
and that's the end of my report, and so if there's a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. We'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded? I heard multiple voices.
I got that.
Hey, Bill, I'm going to Culver's. Come on, I'll buy you a Scoopy right now.